The original plan for Avengers Endgame was completely different from the movie we know today. Marvel once considered killing off all 6 of the original Avengers in one brutal ending. Thanos nearly appeared holding Captain America's severed head as a warning to the team. The time heist was designed to unfold in Asgard instead of New York. Even Nick Fury was written to die during the chaos of the battle. These weren't fan-made theories, but actual directions Marvel almost filmed. What we saw was legendary, but the endgame that almost happened would have changed everything. And it all begins with the boldest idea of them all. Avengers Endgame could have ended in a way that no fan was ready for. In early talks, Kevin Feige suggested a version where all 6 original Avengers would die together. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye would have made one final stand and gone out in the same moment. The idea was huge. Feige even compared it to the famous ending of Toy Story 3, where the toys hold hands and wait for the end. In this plan, the Avengers would have done the same. After years of battles, victories, and losses, their story would close with one massive act of sacrifice. The Russos thought about it, but in the end, they turned it down. They felt that killing everyone at once would be too heavy. It would have crushed the audience, leaving no space for moments of hope or joy. After following these heroes for more than a decade, fans deserved more than a single note of sadness. So the Russos built a different path. Each Avenger would finish their story in their own way. Tony Stark, who had always run from sacrifice, finally gave everything to save the universe. Natasha Romanoff, who carried years of guilt, gave her life to protect the people she loved. Steve Rogers, who spent his whole life fighting, was finally given peace and a second chance with Peggy. Hulk and Hawkeye lived on to carry the legacy forward. This mix of endings gave the film balance. Fans could cry but also smile. They could mourn but also celebrate. Endgame became more than just a goodbye. It became a tribute to every Avenger, each leaving on their own terms. After rejecting the idea of killing every Avenger together, Marvel still considered a different plan. This time, the focus was only on 2 heroes, Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. In this version, both of them would have died side by side during the final battle against Thanos. Think about what that would have meant. Tony and Steve were the heart of the Avengers, but also the most divided. Their friendship broke apart in Civil War, and much of Endgame was about healing that split. Having them fall together in one last sacrifice would have been a powerful symbol. The 2 leaders, once at odds, reunited in death to save the universe. Writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely admitted they played with this idea in early drafts. It was epic on paper, but the problem was closure. If both men died at the same time, neither would have had space for their individual journeys to finish. Steve's life had always been about giving himself up for others. Tony's life had always been about avoiding sacrifice until the very end. If they both bowed out in the same way, those differences would vanish. The producers pushed for something else. Steve's ending became about finally getting the life he lost, reuniting with Peggy Carter and finding peace. Tony's ending became the ultimate sacrifice, proving how far he had come since his selfish days in 2008's Iron Man. By splitting their fates, the story gained balance. Audiences saw one man finally rest, and another finally give everything. It was the perfect contrast, Steve's happy ending and Tony's tragic ending. And that contrast made the finale stronger than if they had shared the same fate. Thanos was already terrifying in Endgame, but the writers once planned to make him even darker. In one early version of the script, his entrance during the 2023 battle would have shocked everyone. Instead of calmly arriving with his army, he was supposed to walk into the battlefield carrying the severed head of 2012 Captain America. The idea was that Thanos had attacked and wiped out the Avengers from that timeline before coming to the present. To prove his power, he would toss Steve Rogers' head at the feet of the heroes. It was meant to send a chilling message. He had beaten them before, and he could do it again. This would have been one of the most disturbing scenes in the entire Marvel universe. It was designed to crush the spirits of the Avengers and show just how ruthless the Mad Titan could be. The scene drew inspiration from darker moments in Marvel comics, where villains use brutal displays to show dominance. But when the Russo brothers and Marvel producers looked at it more closely, they realized it was too much. Marvel films are intense, but they are also meant to be emotional and uplifting. A moment like this risked turning Endgame into something closer to a horror movie rather than an inspiring superhero story. Instead, they chose a different path. Thanos made his entrance with calm confidence, waiting for the Avengers to come to him. That quiet menace turned out to be just as frightening because it showed how certain he was of victory. He did not need gore or shock to prove his power. The time heist was the backbone of Endgame, but in the earliest versions, it looked very different from what we saw. Instead of traveling back to the Battle of New York in 2012, Tony Stark was originally set to make a trip to Asgard. His mission was to sneak into Odin's vault and steal the Tesseract before Loki could get his hands on it. To pull this off, Tony was going to use a brand new stealth suit. It would have made him invisible, allowing him to slip past guards and traps inside the vault. This was not just a fun gadget idea, but also a nod to the kind of clever tech solutions that defined Tony's character from the very beginning. But there was a problem. Even if Tony was invisible to everyone else, there was one Asgardian who could still spot him, Heimdall. In early drafts, this led to a tense face-off between the two, with Heimdall sensing that something was wrong and challenging the intruder. For Tony, it would have been a high-stakes sequence where his wit and improvisation mattered more than his armor. On paper, the scene sounded epic. Asgard's golden halls, Odin's treasures, and Tony Stark sneaking around with god-level forces hunting him down could have made for one of the most thrilling sequences in the MCU. But for the writers and directors, the issue was pacing. Endgame was already jumping across multiple eras and locations, and adding another Asgard mission risked making the story too complicated. Instead, Marvel streamlined the time heist. They chose iconic and familiar settings like the Battle of New York, Thor's visit to Asgard with his mother, and Cap's legendary elevator moment. These scenes delivered nostalgia, humor, and emotion without overwhelming the audience with too many timelines. Still, the idea of Tony Stark facing Heimdall in Odin's vault is one of those what-could-have-been moments that shows how ambitious the early drafts really were. The time heist almost gave us one of the wildest matchups in Marvel history. Just like Captain America fought his past self in New York, the writers considered a scene where Thor would face off against a younger version of himself. Two gods of thunder, both wielding hammers, clashing with lightning exploding around them. It would have been a stunning visual, a true battle of gods moment. But the more the Russos looked at it, the more they realized something was missing. Thor was already a broken hero in Endgame, drowning in grief, guilt, and self-doubt. A flashy duel against his younger self might have delivered spectacle, but it would not have touched the heart of his story. So instead of thunder and lightning, Marvel gave us something far more powerful. Thor met his mother, Frigga, in Asgard. That quiet emotional exchange gave him the strength he needed to face his failures. She reminded him that he was more than his mistakes, and that being worthy had nothing to do with living up to anyone else's expectations. By choosing healing over spectacle, Endgame turned Thor's arc into one of the most heartfelt journeys in the film. The Vormir scene in Endgame nearly looked very different from what audiences saw. In one early draft, the quiet standoff between Natasha and Clint was interrupted by Thanos' troops. Instead of a duel of wills, the moment became a fight for survival. As the soldiers opened fire, Natasha was hit several times. She took bullets to her hip, back, and chest, forcing her to crawl across the rocky surface of Vormir. Even in agony, she kept moving, determined to be the one who made the sacrifice. The plan was for her to reach the edge under fire and throw herself from the cliff, securing the Soul Stone as Clint watched, powerless to stop her. The sequence would have added action and brutality to the film, but the Russos felt it stripped away the emotional weight. Natasha's sacrifice was meant to feel personal, not like another battle scene. If soldiers and explosions filled the screen, her choice would have been overshadowed. The final version, with only Natasha and Clint, carried more intimacy and heartbreak. Two friends, bound by years of trust, fighting each other to give up their lives. No distractions, no army, only the devastating truth that one of them had to fall. That decision to keep the scene small is what made Natasha's sacrifice unforgettable. In the comics, Nebula plays one of the most shocking roles in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. After Thanos is temporarily weakened, she steals the gauntlet and briefly becomes one of the most powerful beings in existence. Early drafts of Endgame considered paying tribute to that moment. During the chaos of the final battle, Nebula was set to grab the gauntlet and wield its power against her father. It would have been a huge nod to longtime Marvel readers, but the problem was focus. Endgame was carefully building toward Tony's final sacrifice. If Nebula had taken the gauntlet first, even for a short time, it risked stealing attention away from Iron Man's defining moment. The story needed one clear, emotional climax, not a detour. Instead, the filmmakers chose to explore Nebula in another way. The final cut gave her a confrontation with her younger self, still loyal to Thanos. By killing that version, she symbolically broke free from the years of abuse and control that had defined her life. That choice carried emotional weight without distracting from the main story. Nebula never wore the gauntlet on screen, but the writers left no doubt she had earned her place among the Avengers. Her story became one of growth, survival, and independence, rather than spectacle alone. Right after Tony's snap, Endgame almost took audiences somewhere completely unexpected. The writers planned for Tony to wake up in the mysterious Soul World, just like Thanos did in Infinity War when he saw young Gamora. But instead of Gamora, Tony was going to meet an adult version of his daughter Morgan, and Marvel even cast Catherine Langford from 13 Reasons Why to play her. The moment was designed to hit hard. Tony, battered and dying, would come face to face with the grown-up version of the little girl he adored. She would tell him that his sacrifice was not in vain, that she had a future because of what he had done. It was meant to give Tony peace before his final breath, a bittersweet goodbye that echoed the Thanos scene but with a heroic twist. On paper, it looked perfect, but when Marvel tested the sequence, audiences didn't feel the connection. They loved young Morgan, the little girl who called Tony, "I love you 3000.
I love you 3000.
Meeting a completely new version of her at the very end felt distant. Instead of tears, it left people confused. So the scene was cut, and the film kept the focus on Pepper's farewell. Her simple line, "You can rest now," became the emotional anchor. In the end, that choice gave Tony a goodbye that was clear, intimate, and unforgettable. This cutscene shows how much care went into every beat of Endgame. Marvel explored multiple ways to give the characters meaningful closure, even if some ideas didn't make the final film. Every choice helped shape the story we know today. If you enjoyed seeing how the story could have gone and want more behind-the-scenes Marvel secrets, hit that subscribe button. You'll get exclusive insights into your favorite heroes and the stories you thought you knew.